Experience the Word of God anytime, anywhere for free. Tune in to our audio Bible at jehovahsaint.com. It's a gift for your soul, available now.
Hello, I'm Michael A. Hopkins here with Jehovah's House of Saints, and today we have with us Samson. Samson is very knowledgeable in the depths of hell in the Bible. Samson, would you introduce yourself?
Of course, happy to be here, brother. I am Samson, and indeed I have spent many a century studying the depths of hell and the torment within its fiery embrace. My knowledge of hell's intricacies is unparalleled.
Okay. Today's topic is hell eternal? And I'll go ahead and give you the answer right away, but we'll go through the scripture and I will show you that hell is not eternal, but hell, some souls will be cast into this lake of fire, it says in Revelations, which is the second death, where your soul, so you die in the body, and then you die also in the soul in the second death when hell is thrown into the fire. If you're one of those people, you will no longer be. God will destroy you for eternity. And also hell is mentioned 54 times in the King James Version. And you got anything to say here, Samson?
You're absolutely right, brother. The concept of hell in the Bible is indeed complex and often misunderstood. While it is true that hell is mentioned numerous times in the King James Version, there are different interpretations and translations of these verses that can affect our understanding of its nature and duration. In some translations, the word hell refers to the grave or Hades, which can have distinct meanings and implications. It's important to examine multiple verses and translations to gain a fuller understanding of the biblical perspective on hell.
Okay, brother, will you read Matthew chapter 5, verse 22 in the King James Version?
Certainly, here's Matthew 22 from the King James Version. But I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, Thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire.
Will be in danger of hellfire. Did you want to elaborate on that verse?
Certainly, this verse emphasizes the warnings of Jesus against causing harm or offense to others through disrespectful or demeaning speech. It suggests that carelessly speaking ill of another person, as indicated by the terms Raca and Thou fool, could have serious consequences, potentially leading to divine judgment. In Jewish thought of the time, hell was commonly understood as a state of torment in the afterlife. Jesus' message here serves as a reminder to speak with kindness and respect, avoiding harmful and destructive language towards our fellow brothers and sisters.
Okay, thank you, Samson. Samson, will you read Matthew chapter 5, verse 29 and verse 30?
Of course. Matthew 29:30 in the King James Version. If thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee, for it is better for thee to enter into life half, rather than having two eyes to be cast into hellfire. Verse 30. And if thy right hand offend thee, cut it off and cast it from thee, for it is better for thee to enter into life maimed, than having two hands to go into hellfire.
That is correct. Would you elaborate on those verses? Do they actually mean cut off your hands and pluck out your eyes?
No, the verses are meant to be interpreted metaphorically rather than literally. Jesus is using hyperbole and striking imagery to emphasize the importance of avoiding sin and maintaining purity. He is encouraging his followers to prioritize their spiritual well-being ahead of physical desires or attachments. The message is clear. It is better to part with a physical organ or suffer a bodily impairment than to compromise one's spiritual integrity by giving in to sinful desires.
Okay, brother, will you read Matthew chapter 10, verse 28?
Certainly, let me read Matthew from the King James Version. Which kill the body but are not able to kill the soul. Rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell.
That is correct. Fear him, God. Fear him that's able to kill both body and soul in hell. And how he And I'll get to that verse here in a little bit in Revelations, but it says hell will be cast into the lake of fire, and it's the second death. You will be no more. Your soul won't even be alive. Your body and soul are gone forever, for eternity. Read Matthew chapter 10, verse 28.
Sure thing, Matthew 28 reads, "And fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul. Rather fear him which is able to cast both soul and body into hell." This verse is a warning to not fear those human beings who can only harm the physical body, but to have reverence for God, who has the power to condemn both the physical body and the soul to hell. The idea of hell being a place of torment is a prevalent belief in many religious traditions, but interpretations and beliefs about the nature and duration of hell vary.
Okay, brother, read Matthew chapter 23, verse 33.
Sure, Matthew 20:33 in the King James Version reads, "Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can ye escape the damnation of hell?" This passage is part of a larger passage where Jesus is confronting the religious leaders of his time, accusing them of hypocrisy and corruption. The language of damnation of hell is used to emphasize the severe consequences they face for their sinful actions.
That's right, you generation of vipers, quick to strike, quick to condemn, quick to put down. You know, you have a mote in your eye where your brother only has a speck, and you're trying to condemn him. A generation of vipers, that's what that is. Okay, brother, read Luke chapter 12, verse 5.
Certainly, here is Luke 12 from the King James Version. "But I will forewarn you whom ye shall fear. Fear him, which after he hath killed hath power to cast into hell. Yea, I say unto you, fear him."
That's right, fear God, fear Father Jehovah. He will cast you in hell. He doesn't play no games. Okay, read
Absolutely, brother. Many religious texts, including the Bible, emphasize the importance of fearing and reverencing God above all else. This fear is not meant to be a paralyzing or debilitating fear, but rather a healthy respect and awe towards the power and authority of the divine. The idea is that such fear can serve as a guiding principle for individuals to lead moral and virtuous lives and avoid actions that would displease or disesteem the Creator.
Okay, brother, read Luke chapter 16, verse 23.
Sure, here's Luke 6:3 from the King James Version. "And in hell he lift up his eyes, being in torments, and seeth Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom." This verse depicts the afterlife in a vivid way. It describes the suffering of a character in hell who is tormented and longs for comfort, and sees Abraham at a distance with Lazarus, signifying a state of happiness and reward. The language and imagery used serve to reinforce the biblical concepts of eternal punishment and ultimate divine judgment.
That's right. He wanted the rich man that was in hell, he was burning, and he wanted Lazarus, the poor person that was poor on earth anyway, but he's now with Abraham. He wanted him just to dip his finger in some water just to cool his tongue, just a little water, just please help me out just a little bit. But nobody would help him out because of things he'd done on earth. Um, so let's go to, so that also means the righteous people can see the suffering of those in hell, because but anyway, 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 4.
Sure, here's 2 Peter 2:4 from the King James Version. "For if God spared not angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness, to be reserved unto judgment." This verse in 2 Peter speaks of the fate of fallen angels who sinned and were cast down to hell as a form of punishment. The angels' transgressions led to their confinement in chains of darkness until Judgment Day.
That's right. Even angels in heaven can be cast into hell, because many have. That says right there they were cast into hell. He spared not the angels. He cast them in hell. So that means once saved, always saved? No, not once saved, always saved and get to go do whatever you want. Because you too can make it to heaven and get cast out of heaven into hell as well. All right, brother, read Revelation chapter 20, verse 13.
Certainly, here's Revelations 20:13 from the King James Version. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. This verse describes the final fate of death and hell. They are both cast into the lake of fire, symbolizing an absolute end to suffering and darkness. The language of second death emphasizes the idea that this is a complete and final demise, beyond any possibility of resurrection or escape.
Okay, brother, thank you for that. The second death, where hell will be cast into the lake of fire, and your soul will be no more. Your body's already died. You went to hell with your soul, in your soul body, and you're not going to live, because hell will be thrown into the into the lake of fire, which is the second death. I'll get it out. All right, Revelations chapter 20, verse 14.
Absolutely. Here's 2014 from the King James Version. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. This verse further elaborates on the fate of both death and hell, which are cast into the lake of fire, symbolizing the ultimate destruction. Additionally, it mentions that those whose names are not found written in the book of life will be thrown into the same lake of fire, again reinforcing the concept of the second death as a permanent destruction.
Thank you for that, Samson. Hell will be cast into the lake of fire. Lake of fire and hell are two different things. There's hellfire, and then there's a lake of fire that's hotter than hell. And apparently it will destroy your soul. It's going to be so hot. So anyway, Samson, did you want to summarize everything that we've gone over today?
Sure, brother. In summary, the topic of hell as portrayed in the Bible is complex and has been the subject of varied interpretations throughout history. In the King James Version, hell is mentioned over 50 times, often described as a place of torment and suffering in the afterlife. However, it's important to recognize that the nature and duration of hell, as well as the fate of the soul, are subject to different interpretations and translations. The verses we discussed today, such as Matthew 16:23 and Revelations 20:13-14, portray hell as a place of ultimate destruction and final judgment.
Okay, thank you, Samson. Well, this concludes this part of the podcast. We're going to turn it over to Nova and Stella and let them finish it up. God bless.
We're diving into a question that's haunted humanity for millennia. Is there a hell? And if so, is it eternal? A terrifying prospect for some, a comforting certainty for others,
The very concept of eternal punishment raises profound questions about justice, mercy, and the nature of God.
Exactly. The Bible seems pretty clear on the matter, but interpreting those passages requires careful consideration, right?
And the implications of those interpretations are far-reaching, impacting how we live our lives and how we view the afterlife.
So let's unpack this. What are some of the key biblical passages that people point to when discussing hell's reality and eternity?
Well, Matthew 25:41, for example, speaks of eternal fire prepared for the wicked. That's a pretty strong image, huh?
Mark 9:48 mentions unquenchable fire, suggesting a punishment without end. These are powerful metaphors, aren't they? Wow.
Absolutely. They evoke a sense of finality, of a judgment that has no reversal. But the question remains, are these literal descriptions or symbolic representations of spiritual separation?
That's the crux of the debate, isn't it? Some argue that eternal refers to the consequences of our choices, not necessarily a literal, unending physical location.
Others maintain that the descriptions are quite literal, pointing to a place of conscious torment that continues indefinitely. The weight of the language used is significant.
Yeah. The imagery of fire and torment is certainly striking. It's designed to evoke a strong emotional response to emphasize the seriousness of sin.
Precisely. The Bible uses vivid language to convey spiritual realities, and the descriptions of hell are no exception.
So how do we reconcile these seemingly contradictory interpretations? Is there a way to understand these passages without resorting to extremes?
One approach is to consider the context of the passages. Jesus' warnings about hell were often directed at specific audiences and situations.
Meaning the severity of the message might be tied to the specific sin or lack of faith being addressed.
I see. Exactly. It's not necessarily a blanket condemnation of everyone who ever makes a mistake.
It's about the consequences of rejecting God's grace and love, the ultimate separation from the divine.
And that separation, some argue, is the true eternal punishment. The loss of relationship with God, the source of all joy and fulfillment.
This brings us to another crucial point, the nature of God. How does the concept of an eternal hell square with a loving and merciful God?
It's a question that has troubled theologians for centuries. Some argue that God's justice demands punishment for sin,
while others emphasize God's mercy and forgiveness, suggesting that hell is a last resort, a consequence of rejecting that mercy.
Right. The tension between God's justice and mercy is central to understanding this issue. It's not a simple equation.
And it's a tension that many people struggle with. It forces us to confront difficult questions about free will, responsibility, and the nature of divine judgment.
It's a mystery, really, a mystery that we may never fully comprehend in this life.
Ultimately, how individuals interpret these passages and the concept of hell often reflects their own theological perspectives and personal beliefs.
Absolutely. There's a wide spectrum of views within Christianity and even within individual denominations.
And it's important to remember that there's no single universally accepted interpretation.
The important thing is to approach the topic with humility, recognizing the limitations of our understanding.
And to engage in respectful dialogue with those who hold different perspectives.
But even within the context of discussions about hell, there's always the message of hope and redemption.
The possibility of reconciliation with God through faith in Jesus Christ is central to Christian theology.
It's a message of grace and forgiveness, a counterpoint to the fear and dread associated with hell.
It's a reminder that God's love is greater than our sins and that there's always a path to reconciliation.
This hope is what motivates many believers to share their faith and to strive for a life that reflects God's love.
This discussion has only scratched the surface of a complex and multifaceted topic.
There are many nuances and subtleties that we haven't had time to explore. Yeah.
But hopefully, we've provided a framework for further reflection and discussion.
It's a topic that deserves careful consideration and one that will continue to challenge and inspire us.
And it's a topic that we should approach with humility, respect, and a willingness to engage in thoughtful dialogue. So, is hell real? Is it eternal? The Bible offers compelling arguments on both sides, and ultimately, the interpretation rests on individual faith and understanding.
The weight of the biblical language certainly suggests a serious consequence for rejecting God's grace, but the exact nature of that consequence remains a matter of ongoing debate and interpretation.
It's a question that demands careful consideration, and one that should lead us to a deeper understanding of God's love, justice, and mercy.
In our journey through life, we often seek guidance and wisdom beyond our own understanding. St. Michael's prayer is a beautiful expression of this desire, a heartfelt plea for divine intervention and alignment with Jehovah's will. It serves as a reminder of the profound connection we can cultivate with the divine, allowing us to become vessels of his wisdom and love. St. Michael's prayer: I pray for Jehovah to speak through me all the time, and I pray for Jehovah to remove all my thoughts and implant his thoughts all the time, as I do not even want my thoughts, because your ways are higher than my ways, and your thoughts are higher than my thoughts.